which should be good to go. All right, let's do it. All right, thank you guys all for being here. Thank you also to Fast for being here and agreeing to do this, giving us some of your time. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Everybody who is not familiar with Vanta Leagues or may not know all about who we are a youth esports developmental league that focuses on kids aged 9 to 14. We offer Rocket League leagues, League of Legends leagues, as well as Valorant leagues. Um, and that's pretty much it. We are very excited to have you. If you could do a brief just introduction of who you are and I guess where you played collegiately and kind of what you did and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So first off, I'm Too Fast, or my real name is Kyle. You can call me either, I don't care. But yeah, I'm a Rocket League player. I've been playing for about 6 years now. I went to school at University of North Texas. I ended up playing for their collegiate Rocket League team from fall 2019 till I guess spring slash summer of this year before graduating. I graduated with my mechanical engineering degree about 4.5 months ago. And so now currently I'm actually trying to pursue full-time Rocket League. I'm trying to work that up currently after school. So
Awesome. Cool. So I guess we're going to start a little bit with your gaming background and kind of if you could just tell us how you got into
yeah,
gaming and esports in general.
yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So um, no, so gaming, I mean, I've been playing video games since I could remember. My dad was a huge gamer, got my brother and I into it when we were little. So some of my best memories were playing on the Game Boy when I was like 4 years old. But I loved playing video games growing up. It was definitely one of my favorite things to do. Never thought I'd be playing it competitively. I found Rocket League in 2015 whenever it came out. For background, I used to play soccer when I was younger, played on travel teams and whatnot. I loved racing games. So when Rocket League came out, saw it was the perfect combination of the two, fell in love with it, was hooked. And then I just ended up playing it a lot. I ended up getting really good, just not even intentionally, just played it. And then started climbing ranks and realized, hey, I'm actually getting good. I want to see where this goes. Try to start playing competitively. And then whenever I transferred from community college to UNT in 2018, heard they had a Rocket League team for collegiate since that was a growing thing. And then in 2019, ended up getting on the varsity team.
Awesome. So when you started playing collegiately, I guess one of the things that we see a lot in Vanta Leagues is not pushback, but I guess hesitancy from parents and from teachers and professors and things like that about esports and gaming. Did you see any sort of pushback from your friends or your family about maybe it not being like a serious pursuit in college when you did start playing collegiately?
Um, Not a lot, no. At first, I think there was a little bit of questioning from my parents, just from the financial side of things, it working out. So for background, I started streaming in 2018. It was right around that time I was starting to apply for jobs. I didn't have a previous job before then because I started college in 2015. My first 3 years didn't have a job, just was full time at school, working on my grades. I had good grades up to that point. And so I was starting to apply for jobs, and that's when I started streaming. Um, but over the first even couple months, I ended up growing pretty quick. I talked to my parents about it and I showed them I sat them down, showed them the finances like, hey, this really could work out. And they're like, okay, try it for a few more months, see how it goes. If it works out, great. If not, then, we go from there. And it ended up growing where, it was stable enough, at least while I was in school. So no, there wasn't a lot of pushback in that sense. I would assume if that was a little bit of a longer road at first, I think there might have been more. But I was very fortunate with the way that things worked out. My parents were very supportive in general, and especially with not only streaming but collegiate happening later down the line. I think the combination of those two within Rocket League allowed there to be a lot more opportunity. And so again, my parents were all the more supportive then.
Awesome, cool. So, what kind of advice would you give maybe a middle schooler or a high schooler who kind of wants to pursue this path, whether it be streaming, whether it be playing collegiately, or just making esports and gaming a bigger part of their life as they grow older?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is it's a lot about priorities. I think that's number one. First off, it's a very long road. Even before I ever started streaming, I was playing the game for 3 years. Before I ever started playing collegiately, I was playing the game for 3 to 4 years. It's a long road. It doesn't really happen overnight. So not getting too caught up in making Rocket League or gaming the number one part of your life. That there has to be balance in other areas. So focusing on school and good grades and things like that. Focusing on even just other healthy things like getting good sleep, spending time with your family. Those things are good. So definitely making sure that you balance that time well. But whenever you are playing, making the most of your time. You know, it's one thing, even playing sports, to go and kick a soccer ball with your friends. It's another thing to be doing drills and practicing to get ready for games. It's kind of the same type of thing. You can kick back and play with friends, and that's always good experience. But you know, doing even training drills on your own, or watching even videos about, hey, how do you rotate in game? Like, what are different things you can do to like build up your smarts? That's a separator, I would say, between like taking the game more casually for fun and taking it more serious on the competitive side. And so there's definitely a mental shift that has to happen at some point. So if you are looking to go from middle school or high school to collegiate, then being intentional about, hey, spending your time working on drills or practicing your shooting or car control, rotations, or if it's for sports, then you know, like focusing on the smarts and other aspects of different games. So that's probably what I would say, as
Cool.
far as that goes.
So of those things, which would you say is the most key to improving as a player, as a Rocket League or any other esport player?
So specifically with Rocket League, it's twofold. There's one side of it which is like the like smart side, and then the mechanical side. So mechanical being car control, being able, you know, if you have the ball, can you shoot it well? Can you dribble? Can you make a play whenever you're given time and space? The smart side of it, knowing, okay, if I'm not on the ball, where should I be on the field to support my teammates? How can I be in the best position to defend? How can I be in the best position to score? And so it's kind of like whenever one goes up, then the other one has to go up as well, type thing. So if you're really good at just one and you lack in the other, like you'll see like weaknesses come out. So
Right.
you want to be good at both. So I would say it's kind of a constant balance where like one day or for a week, month, you might be practicing one really heavy, and then the other one you're practicing the other. So I would say, for one, watching replays is a great way to learn more about your smarts, where you should position and see how you got scored on, how you did score. And the other one is spending time working on your mechanics. So free play, custom training, workshop maps, things like that, where you're just getting better at controlling your car and doing what you want to do on the ball.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds. I mean, like most esports, I think it has those two different aspects. It's got the mental and the more technical, and it's
Hmm.
definitely something we try to emphasize as well with our coaching, and we try to see both sides of it, and it's definitely important for the kids to
Hmm.
see. So kind of going back into the collegiate side of things, I kind of want to ask you a little bit about the diversity or lack thereof in collegiate esports and what that
Yeah.
looked like, and what issues or maybe um, good things that you're seeing in that area, both sides of
Specifically,
it. Yeah,
specifically with diversity.
diversity and inclusion in, I guess, minorities, women, or
Yeah.
outreach of those groups.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that there's a barrier in that aspect. Of, obviously, with the large majority of gamers, even in previous days and even now, the majority being predominantly males. But I do see that there's a lot more like even just like women inclusion and all that within the community. Like even today, I saw on Twitter that there's a up and coming Rocket League creator that got signed to Version One, which is a professional esports organization. Chrissy is her name. She even got signed today to an org. There's a really popular podcast within Rocket League called First Touch, which is Dazzler and T Bates and Rule Diz, um, all being like African American, but they're super good at what they do. Like I love seeing the fact that the Rocket League community is really bringing everyone together as a whole and being intentional about that. I've seen a lot more intentionality, especially in like recent several months, past few years, with that. And I think that it's, at least from my perspective, that there still is that gap, and but I do see that there's a lot of effort there to for that being filled, and for like those holes in the community to be patched. And so it's really encouraging to see.
Okay, awesome. So the last thing I think I want to ask about your collegiate experience or your organized esports experience in general is, what kind of benefits do you see to that specifically? Like being a part of an organized group that's practicing regularly, that's having games, that's participating in a league. What are the benefits that you saw in yourself or that maybe you've seen in other people?
As far as how's it grown me as a person?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it might sound cliche or cheesy, but really, like learning teamwork, really was a very big thing that I learned personally. Having other people beside me, one that had my best interests at heart, and ultimately for the team overall. It was really, really, it was a really good environment to be in. That even though that I was inexperienced whenever I first got on the team, even for collegiate at UNT, my teammates, my even our coach was a lot more experienced in those regards, and so there was a lot I got to soak up and learn from them, both as a player, but it also pushed me as a person because it taught me that hey, I was coming in as the weaker link on the team, and my coach told me those words literally, and I took them to heart, and it hurt. But it was something that I either had the choice of, hey, either I can let this frustrate me and I can let this bog me down, and this is just going to be who I am as quote weaker link, whatever, or the weak link, or I can say, okay, this isn't where I want to be. I want to do better on the team and take that as a stepping stone and know that, hey, these people are here to help me. These people want my best. And if I lean into them, then they're willing to help me out. And so that was really actually, I'd say the biggest key turning point for me as a competitive player was fall 2019, whenever my coach sat me down and told me that, because it really made me decide between the two. And for background, I didn't really have a lot of self-confidence at the time, a lot of like just good self-esteem. And so it was hard to hear. But after that, I realized, hey, that these people want my best. I like they're telling me to have confidence that they would if they didn't tell me this in the first place, or excuse me, because they told me this, like they believe that I can do more.
Right.
And if I see it as that and I take it as that, then I really will. And that was a big turning point for me as a player. And it transferred from just being, from just having more confidence as a player to having more confidence as a person.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think we also kind of see it as, at least I personally kind of see it as very similar to traditional sports in the same kind
Mm-hmm.
of qualities that you're getting from a traditional sports team. Obviously, you're not getting necessarily the same physical skills or developing those same physical skills, but I think the mental skills are just as important, and I think that esports are huge for that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to take a little step away from collegiate and start talking about your Twitch experience because that's something
Yeah.
that a lot of people here are probably very interested in. Um, Starting pretty basically, but what do you enjoy about streaming on Twitch? Why did you start doing it? And yeah, kind of like what fulfillment does it give you personally?
Yeah. So like I said, I'll start whenever I first got Rocket League. I got Rocket League in August 2015. I didn't really know about Twitch before then. Because of Rocket League though, I love the game. I wanted to watch more content. There wasn't enough on YouTube, and I heard about Twitch. And so there were people like Cronovi back in the day, Cooksy, there were big streamers within Rocket League that were like some of the best players at the time. Um, and there were just like other competitive players becoming pros that I enjoyed watching. And so from about late 2015, I knew I wanted to be a streamer at some point. Fast forward to June 2018, ended up working out. My dad actually helped me get a stream PC. I had a friend of mine help set everything up for Twitch. Started streaming. I did it just because I was playing ranked late at night. I was already going to anyway. I wanted to talk with people. I figured, why not? I'm already doing this anyway. Didn't really expect it to grow into anything. I just did it for fun, just with a few viewers. Ended up getting a couple really big hosts from other Rocket League creators. Stayed super consistent with streaming. Ended up growing. And then from there, it was able to basically suffice as like a solid part-time job while I was in school. So in that sense, I loved being able to obviously like play video games to go through school. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, like there's obviously that part. But also too, whenever I got even into collegiate, it was really nice because those two really intertwined. Where even as I was playing collegiate, it's like, hey, for my job, I can still go play the game a little bit and still focus on chat and other things. Like there's other distractions, but I can still get extra free time in the game. Basically, that's still, I guess, still acting as my quote unquote job.
Great.
And so being able to have those two complement each other in that sense was really helpful and beneficial going through school. So obviously in that sense, it was nice. Now I really love the community side of Twitch. I love being able to interact with chat, being able to encourage others. Like there's a lot of people that will come in. Some people have great days, some people have rough days, but knowing that like I get to be a part of that and like be a positive influence on others, and like really get to be like a blessing for others is really even a blessing for myself. That's something that I'm very thankful to be able to do each day.
Awesome. So I know you said you got some hosts from some like huge streamers when you were first starting out or early in your career on Twitch. What were your personal kind of strategies to grow your Twitch channel? Like, what did you do personally, separated from outside things, separated from hosting, separated from other people helping you out, that really helped you grow your channel and grow your community?
So, the answer that I'd give is probably not the one that you'd expect. So I really didn't do a lot, in all honesty. I was streaming for fun. I didn't really think of like, oh, strategies to grow. I was already good at the game. I was very much a competitive player at the time. Actually, I would argue before if I not taken the streaming route, I actually would be much farther along as a competitive player now. But because of streaming, that ended up taking over a lot of time, especially after I ended up growing, and I focused more on the community and my channel more than competitive, and so I kind of fell off in a sense. But that's to say, I was already a good player. I was well connected within the competitive scene because at least for NA or North America, like the competitive scene was pretty tight knit. Like everyone knew everyone, and so the people that ended up hosting me were fellow competitive players that just knew me just in ranked from just talking with here and there. And so I never asked them for hosts. I never was like well connected with them on Twitch. They just knew I started streaming and wanted to help me out. And so it was really as simple as that. After that, I saw the kind of the spike in my channel, and I just love streaming. So I doubled down on it, streamed a ton, almost every day, long hours, and that's kind of what helped me build a semi-consistent audience at first. That was, I would say, was really the biggest thing. And plus two, 3 years ago with Twitch, it was a lot less saturated than it is now, and so especially within Rocket League, and so it was relatively easy to grow in the sense of I didn't have a lot of other streamers I was really competing against for viewership, and I was already a high level player. Versus now, I would say it's a lot more difficult. More now, it's more growing on other platforms like TikTok or YouTube, Twitter, and then bringing people over along with networking and whatnot. But it's a little different now than it was before.
For sure. So have you stepped into any of those other platforms? Like I know you're on Twitter, but have you stepped into like TikTok or Instagram or tried to bring any extra community in those routes, or have you not really gotten into that so much yet?
Yeah, ironically enough, no. I definitely have been wanting to start TikTok for a while. It's kind of a running joke in my community that I keep saying it, but I'm not doing it. But it's something I do genuinely want to do at some point. As of late, I've been focusing really heavy on competitive, especially with RLCS qualifiers coming up soon. I would love to give that a best of a run as I can, and I know if I do spend time in TikTok and whatnot, I'll naturally get enveloped in that. So it's been very much competitive right now, but I'm hoping in the near future to focus more on TikTok and more content.
So can you elaborate a little more on what you're starting to get into now? Just because you touched on it a little bit there with the RLCS and everything, but can you elaborate a little bit more onto kind of where your Rocket League career is going now that you're out of school?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, like I said, I call myself a competitive player because I haven't made the professional scene yet, and so that's something that's definitely a long-term goal of mine. I want to do, um, but it's definitely obviously it's a very competitive environment. There's very few spots within RLCS. A lot of people that are like working hard to get there, and so it's definitely a long road. But it's something that I'm wanting to pursue. So my goals right now are to continue competing as a player, hopefully make an RLCS, and then continue streaming on the side. Again, side things, I want to grow TikTok and other platforms and grow my Twitch up more where that can be more sustainable. And then eventually, if I were to make RLCS in the future, be on an org or things like that, and kind of have that be what sustains me financially. So that's kind of my goals right now. A lot more of my passion right now is on the competitive side, though, and especially again with RLCS coming up, it's kind of even furthers that even more. So that's kind of where I'm at currently.
Cool. So with that, I know that we talked about this a little bit, but the whole keyboard and mouse versus controller debate. I know
Yeah.
that you're religiously a keyboard and mouse player. Is that gonna stay the same forever, no matter what?
I don't know about no matter what, but most likely yes. I would definitely still say play on controller if you're listening to this. I know I'm a hypocrite saying that, but play on controller. If I could go back, I definitely wish I started on it because I think that I would be farther along mechanically. But I don't think that keyboard and mouse right now is inherently keeping me from reaching a professional level, especially because there's other current pro players that do use keyboard and mouse in the scene.
So was there a point when you thought about switching away from keyboard and mouse and going to a controller, but then you realized you were just like too far in it, or did you just never really consider it?
There's a funny story with that. So I thought I was too far in around I think 300 to 500 hours. I remember thinking about it and I was like, man, I really want to switch to controller. I feel like I'd do better. But at 300 to 500 hours, I was like, nah, I'm too far in. And right now I actually just passed 9,000 hours. So yeah, so ironically enough, I was very early on, but I had no clue.
You probably could have switched.
Yeah, I definitely could have.
Okay. So kind of getting away from that a little bit, getting away from the competitive side, more into, I guess, esports for youth specifically.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the barrier of getting parents over the hump of like wanting to put their kids in competitive esports and seeing it as a benefit. What would you, who has been a part of collegiate esports, who has been in the scene for a while now, tell to a parent who is maybe not into it or is unsure whether or not they want to put their kids in competitive esports?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of it kind of goes back to what I was saying before with priorities. So for example, we'll take esports out of the picture. So let's say you have a kid, whatever, who's playing soccer. There's a difference if he's playing like kicking the soccer ball around with his friends, comes home from school, like just plays with his friends 6 hours a day, and his grades are dropping, he isn't doing well, and he's just kind of kicking the ball around with his friends. That's different because okay, well, you need to work on your grades, like there's other priorities you need to take care of. But if those priorities are being taken care of and your kid is like knows he's doing well, he has future goals in mind, like that there's potential for his college to be paid for, potential for it to be fully paid for, like full time, or like getting a full ride within
Right.
college, there's opportunities afterwards. There's a lot of the same similarities within esports. If you have a son or daughter that's really interested in like hey, like wanting to play collegiately within an esport, whether it be Rocket League or elsewhere, there's a lot of opportunities. Even someone I'm teaming with now, who's around my skill now, ended up getting a full ride to Boise State off of Rocket League, and is talking about how they're basically wanting him to be kind of like the face of their esport program, and a lot of opportunities like that. But it's not just his skill, but it's also his grades, and so that's why I say it's a matter of priorities as well. Obviously, it's good, and you need to be good at the game you're playing or whatever you're doing. But especially if your son or daughter has good grades, then there's very much opportunity within that. Even for me personally, I ended up getting about a third to half my tuition paid for off of competing for UNC within Rocket League, and then everything else was paid for by streaming. And so I say that to say I got myself completely through school with a little bit of help from my parents early on, off of Rocket League. And so there's definitely opportunity, and the scene itself is only growing where there's more opportunity for this. So there's is definitely a very strong possibility for that to happen. If again, like priorities are well taken care of, like grades and whatnot, and like your son or daughter is putting in good work.
Awesome, cool. Last question. We have a bunch of questions coming in for the
Yeah.
Q&A, so I'm going to do one more question and then we're going to go
Cool.
ahead and get over to those. It's about mental health and esports, or mental health and gaming, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, you can tell me negative and positive what effects that you think that you've seen mental health wise on yourself and maybe other people, or what you consider benefits and also negative impacts that gaming may have on mental health.
Yeah, that's a very big question. So I'll try to break it up and be as quick as I can with this, because it's a very big subject. Well, specifically within the competitive side, actually, I'll back up first. We'll say gaming in general. So for one, obviously, like for me, I've noticed, and it was very prevalent even with like the start of COVID and whatnot, and like being indoors a lot. Like UNT went online for a while, and so I wasn't outside much at all, and I
Right.
could tell like my just like my mental state was just dropping. I was just in a, like kind of down in the dumps a lot more. So even now, like after being graduated, like it sounds weird, but even for me, I'm taking even just like a daily goal of mine just to go outside for like 15 or 30 minutes and literally just get sunlight and just walk around. And I noticed for me, like even just that in itself has had tremendous effects like on my mood, just being more like upbeat, positive during the day. So even if something as simple as that, being out, spending time, again, prioritizing like even spending time with friends. Obviously, you need to have time for the game and time to work on things, and so there's a balance there. But making sure that you still are getting out, you're seeing people, having human interaction is like very basic as that sounds. Especially within gaming, it's easy to literally be indoors, like isolated, and so you have to be intentional about going outside, talking with other people, just hanging out, saying hi to even neighbors, whatnot. That stuff is really important, even if it kind of seems like just a passerby type thing day to day. Um, I would say within streaming specifically, streaming is a very long story, so I'll keep it short. But basically, I had a really hard time with it mentally, where like the viewership, whatnot, the follow count had a really negative effect on me, where I was streaming for a view count, for a follow count. If I had like above average viewership on a day, my day was great. I was feeling great about myself. If it was low, like I was frustrated, like I hated the day, like I didn't want to stream. It was really, really bad. And like that would sway within like a matter of like one day to the next. And it was really unhealthy. And I had a friend call me on it, and he's like, "Hey, dude, like you're not doing this for the right reasons." Um, and so I actually ended up, quote unquote, I quit streaming July 2019. And I remember having a day. And so for background, I am a Christian, but I remember praying one day, and I was like, God, like I don't know like where I'm at with this. I don't know. And I was like, I'm done. Like I don't know if this is 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Like I'm not doing this. Like unless you want me to or something different. Like I'm done. And it really like took that like time away. And it was only a few weeks, but it took that time away to really reset my priorities, where it wasn't for the view count, it wasn't for the follow count I was streaming, but because of the enjoyment, like I said previously, the community aspect of it, streaming for others and to be able to be a positive impact on others and pour into other people. That was what I really had to wrap myself around, and not just the selfish side of it of, hey, how am I doing as a person? If I follow counts are up, I'm more of a person. If they're down, then I'm less.
Right.
That a matter of I'm not tied to that, and that's not the person that I am.
Right.
And so it was difficult for me to work through. And like I said, I literally ended up quitting, and now I'm back. And it wasn't for long, but I had every intention of being done. And a lot of it, again, 99% of it was the mental aspect side. So it's very big, and it's not something talked about, especially among content creators in general. Even competitive players, it's talked about here and there, but not as much as it should be. But it's a very big deal, and that's why that's something that's very passionate. I'm very passionate about, because it has such a close impact on me and even my career and what I'm doing now, and not just what I'm doing, but how I'm approaching it and the perspective that I have. So it's something you have to very much keep in check day to day.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into these questions. We're gonna start with a question from Cohen from Iolani School in Hawaii. He's not
Awesome.
able to be here today, but he wanted to ask how you deal with ranked anxiety. How do you deal with anxiety when you're playing ranked?
Ooh, good question. That's definitely tough. I remember whenever I first got Rocket League, I remember I think it was maybe a week or two into Rocket League, and I remember looking at like the ranked playlist, like being able to play ranked, and I remember sitting there for a good 5 minutes and just debating if I was gonna play it because I was nervous. And I remember sitting there and going, well, if I don't start now, I'm never gonna start. And so I just clicked the button. I was like, the worst that happens is I lose some points next to my name. Like, I feel a little bad about myself in the moment, and I keep going. And it took that like initial like hump of just getting over and getting used to at first. And once you get used to that, it does get better. Now, a lot of times people talk about how if they're on their promo game, or like they're about to rank up and they've hit a new, like they're going to hit a new rank, then they get nervous, and that's very normal. A lot of it is just a matter of experience and knowing, even if the number or the rank next to your name goes down, it doesn't define you as a person or as a player. That everyone has those moments. I have people that tell me every night in stream, hey, I started today at this rank, and then like after an hour I dropped like 2 ranks, and then they're talking about how they're upset, and then the next day they come in, they're like, oh, I got it back.
Yeah.
I mean, or sometimes it's a week or a month, but the
Right.
thing is that as long as you don't let that bog you down or stop you entirely, you will end up getting that back, and you'll end up climbing back up. And if you really do get to the point on your where you're on your promo, even if you lose, it's a matter of time before you get over that hump.
Right.
And so that's a lot of the case with rank anxiety. If it's something where like you're nervous play ranked, or you don't want to because like it's just like nerve wracking, know that I've been there. And even after like all this time, there's even times like I can have those little moments. So know it's very normal. Know that it's okay. But still to take that as an opportunity, as a challenge, and not let that ultimately deter you.
Awesome. All right, next we've got a question from Brandon. What underrated mechanic or technique did you learn that helped you improve your play significantly during your early stages of Rocket League? Underrated mechanic.
Ooh, um, that's tough. Underrated mechanic, I would say early on, I'd say shooting is really important. As you start climbing ranks, I would say like being good off the walls is really important, and then air dribbles. Air dribbles are surprisingly good. A lot of people focus on flip resets lately, and I feel like even diamonds champs, like grand champs, like, oh, I want to learn how to flip reset. But realistically, you can do so much with even just a regular air dribble. And even if you watch professional play, you'll see more times than not, players are using air dribbles more than flip resets. So shooting early on, and then like wall shots, and then air dribbles, what I'd say.
Okay, cool. Next, a question from Justice. What does a typical practice day look like? I guess this is collegiately, like when you're on a team. What does a practice day look like?
Yeah, so with UNC, we'd practice 8 hours a week. We'd do two 3 hour practices a week and then one 2 hour practice a week. The 3 hour practices, the first hour would be warming up, just kind of settling in because we'd have classes all day. I remember I'd usually be late because I had some classes that would start like I had a class that end right as my practice started, so I
Yeah.
had to like hurry over. But it's usually just get settled in, get warmed up. The next 2 hours would be scrim blocks, so we'd be scrimming other universities. So that would be like our practice time essentially is scrimming other teams, different from traditional sports where a lot of it's like just like a individual, just a team practice, like where it's all in like just inclusive among themselves.
Yeah.
With Rocket League, you're playing other teams and that's your practice. And then the 2 hours a week, the 1 2 hour week practice would be VOD review. So we would take replays from scrim days or from game days, and we would like break them down and go over them like what is something individually we need to work on, what's something as a team that we need to work on, like what is it going wrong with our play, because you'll see a lot of tendencies, and like a lot of habitual things that like get you scored on or get you goals, um, and so a lot of it was like flushing that type of stuff out and getting that type of stuff nailed down, whether it be working on defense or like where we should rotate in certain areas or at certain times. That was generally what it looked like. And then we also like would play individually on our own, like ranked. We do free play or like we'd watch replays on our own, things like that.
So I have a question about that. This is just from me. So
Yeah.
what I'm getting is it's kind of like watching film for a sport, right? You're watching like
Hmm.
your past your past games and things.
Yep.
Did you ever do like research on your competition? Like, so would you watch like VODs of other teams playing?
Yeah. So actually, so sorry, finish
No,
your
no, no. Go
question.
ahead. You're good. You're good. That's it. That was it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So not a lot. If it was a really, really big match, then I would. So I'll give an example. So fall 2020, we there's a new team that came in called Northwood. They basically got three essentially semi-pro or almost or arguably pro players on their roster, and it kind of shocked the collegiate scene because everyone else was just like SSLs, like Supersonic Legends, like the highest rank in the game, still good, but not like semi-pro.
Right.
And Northwood went and signed three essentially semi-pro players, shocked the scene. They ended up winning fall 2020, and we played them during championships. But we lost to them 4-1, and there was a $5,000 collegiate invitational, which was the top 16 collegiate teams. So it was my school, UNT, Northwood. There was a handful of others. Well, anyway, so we ended up playing them in the semifinals, and right before the semifinals started, I remember I sat down and I watched some of the replays just on my own, from fall 2020. Like, hey, why did they beat us? What was the reasoning? And from that, I noticed tendencies in their gameplay. And this was 15 minutes before our match. And just I was going to call my team, told my team, hey, these are the things that they did to beat us. This is what we did consistently to get ourselves scored on. Fix these things, we're probably fine. We actually ended up winning that series 4-2. And we were the very first team outside of Akron who won like everything past like for collegiate like past 2 years. Like we were like the first like just like random team in a sense to take a win off them. We actually ended up winning that tournament. That was the only tournament that we've or like major collegiate tournament that we've won as a school. But a lot of it stemmed from me sitting and watching those replays of us playing them before. So in big moments, yes, generally speaking, it's usually just our own gameplay and checking those things.
Gotcha. Cool. Next question is from Casey. How was it trying to balance school and college plus playing collegiately? How would you recommend someone try to maintain that balance?
The honest answer was difficult. I'd be lying if I said my grades didn't drop a bit. I still didn't do bad. My grades were still good, but they dropped a little bit.
To be fair,
Um,
your degree was very difficult.
yeah, mechanical engineering was tough. But yeah, no, it was tough, honestly. I think that there's a lot of times where it can look really easy on the surface, like I had it all together. I didn't. But looking back, I would say the best thing I can tell you, both from my experience and other people's experience I talked to within the scene, is creating a schedule and really outlining what your priorities are. Because if you don't outline your priorities, then a lot of times that whatever is urgent that week or in that moment will take priority of what's really important. And so you really have to prioritize what are things that truly matter, what are your goals, whether it be school, collegiate with esports or something else, like social life, whatnot, and really sit down and prioritize like what's going to be important to you. So for me, it was I wanted to do well in school. My goal was to graduate with a 3.7 GPA, which I did do. And then my goal was to keep pursuing like collegiate, keep streaming. I wanted to stream 3 to 4 days a week. I wanted to keep playing collegiate. My goal was to make championships each season, or like essentially top 8 or 4, depending on the season, which I did do pretty much every season. And so those were my goals personally, and that was what I had to outline. That's what kind of balanced my time during the week. So it can be like writing schedules of, okay, if you need to spend so much time on school, then like making the time for that. Or if you need to spend so much time with Rocket League or doing else like other things, then making time for that. And then whatever extra time you have, then you can fill with different things. That's the best advice I can give as far as what worked for me. Looking back, and then what I talk with other people in the scene, both within the collegiate scene and within even the professional scene. That's kind of the common theme that I've heard amongst people.
So, time management and prioritizing is what I'm getting.
Yep,
Okay,
100%.
gotcha. Um, let's see. This question is about, we touched on it a little bit, but if you could just maybe briefly again touch on, or just like pick the top three biggest benefits that you could explain to parents about competing in esports. Just like the top three off the top of your head, what are they?
Um, I'd say teamwork, discipline, um, being able to perform under pressure, actually,
That's a good one because that
and
can
being
kind
a
of be like applied to even testing, like performing under
yeah.
pressure that applies to testing and
Hmm.
schools and interviews and whatever else you have to do
Hmm.
later on in
Yeah.
life.
Oh yeah. I mean, not to elaborate too much on this, but if you asked me even 3 to 4 years ago to talk in front of a group of even 20, I would be freaking out, losing my mind.
Yeah,
But even just overall that experience playing in front of so many people, it's something that it doesn't bother me as much now, and I'm a lot more comfortable with.
right. That makes sense. This is another question about balancing gaming and schoolwork. This is a good one. Who are the gamers and streamers that you personally follow the most? Who do you watch the most on Twitch or YouTube or um, wherever else?
Ooh. So I don't watch a lot of YouTube for Rocket League now. A lot of it's Twitch. I would say probably Forky and Spuda because they're both friends of mine, and they're also both very good players. But they're also friends of mine, so because of that, like I'm biased towards them. I would say all time though, especially in the early days, for me it was John Sandman. I love watching John Sandman's YouTube videos. That was something for me like I love doing. It was like a routine of mine to like watch his videos. Like back 2016, 17, 18. So I'd say probably those three.
Cool. Um, Next one is why Rocket League over other games? I guess why did Rocket League hook you? Why was that the one that caught your eye?
Yeah. So like I said at first, so I used to play sports. And like growing up, so I played soccer when I was younger. I played on travel teams. Um, had I kept pursuing that, I probably would have played collegiate. I have a lot of old teammates that did. Actually, one that got signed to an MLS team. Funny enough. Um, but that was kind of the route I was going. And then I love playing racing games. And so when Rocket League came out, I saw like soccer and cars, lost my mind. And so that was kind of why. And then as time went on, just started doors and opportunities started to open up on the competitive side, and then with streaming and then collegiate. And so it just seemed like this was kind of just the track I wanted to continue to go down. I didn't really want to go somewhere else with it, as far as like within another esport, another game. And so I kind of just stuck with things.
That makes sense. Next question is what is your favorite color?
Ooh, blue. I like blue.
Good answer. This is from Anonymous. How many hours a day? Well, we can make it hours a week. On average, would you say that you play Rocket League or gaming in general?
Yeah. So it varies. So right now, because this is what I'm trying to do full time. Financially, it's not there. I'm working it up, but hours wise, it's there right now. Right now, I'm putting in probably 50-ish hours a week, give or take a little bit. Sometimes it's 40, 45. Sometimes it's 55, 60. But about 50 hours a week right now is what I'm doing. Whenever I was in school with Rocket League, it was probably closer to 25 to 30.
Gotcha. Kind of going along with that, this is a question from Chris. It says, "Do you feel like hours played equals better in competitive? So more hours makes you better in competitive."
On paper, on paper, yes, for improvement. Like obviously, if you have more time in the game, chances are you'll be better than someone with less time in the game. But it's a matter of the quality of your hours too. If you have, say, 50 hours a week and your time is really low quality, that's worse off than someone who has, say, 35 or 40 hours a week and incredibly quality. As far as like taking the game serious, learning a lot from it, recognizing weaknesses in their gameplay, fixing things, versus just, hey, let's hop on, kick back, and play some video games.
Right.
Um, but generally speaking, yes, you'll improve more if you play more generally. But obviously there's limits with that, like where, if you're playing like literally 100 hours a week or 80 hours a week, like at some point it's going to do more harm than good. But you won't hit that point unless you're playing it all day, every day.
Right. So do you think there's, I guess, kind of like a skill cap if you're only playing rather than like doing like focused like drills and practice work and intentional playing, I guess? Like, is there a cap that you think that most people will not surpass unless they're focusing on those more intentional things?
I wouldn't say it's so much a cap. It's more that a lot of other people, as you get higher up, like other people are learning and improving quicker. And so if they're taking it more serious and you aren't, then naturally you'll kind of slide down. But it's not like you're gonna, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a cap. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you could keep getting better, but there's some things in the game where they're very subtle. And so unless you're intentional about like seeking it out, you'll just
Right.
keep missing it.
Right. That makes sense. Next question is also from Chris. Do you ever feel like you need to change your play style if you're on a losing streak?
That's actually a problem I've had to work through. I would actually change my play style way too much, and then I never really had a set play style. And it was a big issue of mine. I don't think you have to just 180 your play style all the time, but there's definitely little things that you can do differently that will help you. So a lot of times, what I tell people is usually like not diving for the ball, not over committing, and like just trying to challenge everything. That's usually leaning towards that extreme is usually will do more harm than good. If you're more picky and like just if you pick and choose better with your challenges and more methodical, usually you'll kind of work your way out of funks. That's at least what's worked for me.
Cool. Do you have any tips? This question is from Casey. Do you have any tips for trying to re-motivate yourself to play Rocket League if you're finding it hard to find motivation to play? Like, how can you re-motivate yourself if you're tired or burnt out or whatever else it may be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know for me, I've had times like that, for sure. With as much as I've played, sometimes it's really just as simple as taking a break. I mean, burnout's normal. I've talked even like with RLCS coaches, and they've even said for them, they're looking at replay reviews. They're sometimes streaming themselves, like they're getting burnt out.
Yeah.
So there's times where even for literally people professionally in the scene that they have to take breaks. So it's very much a healthy thing to do, and that's not something that you feel like you should shy away from, especially if that's how you're feeling. As far as that goes, at the end of the day, it is a video game. If you don't enjoy it at the end of the day, then then it's okay to not play it.
Right.
If you're obviously in like playing professionally or you're playing collegiate, then at some point, like it's a sense like if it's paying for your school or like it's like a job, then you sometimes have to push through those bad days. But overall, if it's something you don't enjoy, then it's okay to take a break. It's okay to do something different. It's not something that's like a bad thing to do. And then if you feel that desire again to play, then you can go back to it and then try to push through those things that maybe caused burnout before, cause you to be frustrated with the game, whether it be bad teammates or you're not playing well or things like that.
Gotcha. I think this is actually the last question unless anybody else has anything that they want to add really quick. Um, it's about, I guess, choosing your collegiate team. You might have touched on this at the beginning, but how did that process go about? Did you choose like to go to school there and then they reached out to you, or they reached out to you about playing collegiately, and like what was the process of for that relationship like?
Yeah, so I would say whenever I got in the collegiate scene, there was a lot more grassroots. Now there's a lot more like scouting opportunities. There's a lot of schools looking for players. The collegiate scene, at least for Rock League, was very new whenever I transferred to North Texas. And so it was really as simple as I knew UNT had a good team. I met one of their players in person. I was like, hey, I'm transferring to UNT. I'm interested. And then he was like, yeah, well, whenever you transfer, then like let us know and we'll get you on a team or something. And then I just reached out to him and I transferred. So it was very like simple or
Yeah,
like simplistic.
right.
Versus nowadays, it's a lot more like there's a lot more built up varsity programs or at least esports clubs that have a lot more like streamlined processes. Where for mine, I would say I was very fortunate to have it be like as simple as me just knowing the guy on the team and then
Right.
messaging him.
Yeah.
So it was obviously I was very fortunate in that sense. But it was a little different for me than it is now.
That makes sense. Yeah. Um, you say you're fortunate, but I'm sure you still would have been fine if it was the way it is now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We do have a couple more questions. So, did playing sports help you become better at games, at video games, in general and in Rocket League? I guess did playing sports help you give you skills that you were transferable into video games?
Um, a little bit, not as much as you think, but a little bit. I think part of it was the playing under pressure and competing under pressure
Mm-hmm.
from sports. I never felt a lot of pressure when I played when I was younger, but I still do think subconsciously it's helped a little bit. Also, the discipline aspect was something really big because, like I said, whenever I played soccer, and as I grew older, I played hockey. A lot of people I played soccer and hockey with are now playing collegiate, and so that was definitely the track I was going down. And so having that just like hard work and discipline aspect from sports definitely carried into Rocket League, especially in the past several months where I'm transitioning to full time and wanting to make the pro scene. It's a very big jump, and it's something that I'm finding in some ways to be very slow, but as far as the learning process to be much faster than I would have expected, just because of the previous discipline that I gained from sports. But it's not like because I played soccer or hockey, then I just know how to perfectly rotate in Rocket League.
Right.
It took a lot of time,
Right.
and it was very much just grinding out Rocket League.
That makes sense. What are your tips for being a good supportive teammate rather than being the guy for the team? So I guess yeah, if you're not the star player, what can you do to be supportive and to do the best that you can for your team?
So that's a great question. So actually, about a month and a half ago, I had a great talk with actually a pro player, a professional player named Roll Diz, who I actually mentioned was on one of the Rock League podcasts, First Touch. But I had a great conversation with him in person about a month and a half ago on this because I asked him the same exact question. Because and he said that even for him, he feels like he's the support player on his team. And I asked him how he went about that. And a lot of it is enabling your teammates, giving them time and space on the ball. And a lot of it's not throwing yourself out of the play, making sure that you can stay in the play, be there for your teammates. Because, like I was saying originally, if you challenge the ball or overcommit or dive, you're leaving your teammates on their own. So there's a lot that you can do for your team by simply enabling your teammates, giving them time and space, either bumping or demoing someone, or getting the other team to throw away the ball and give it to your team. Little things like that that might go unnoticed by most that can really enable your team to do well, especially if you're on not just like solo queue, but like a collegiate team.
Right.
So even with me on UNC, that was something that I did really well for my team. That I would say they were definitely, I had my pop off moments. I had my highlight reel goals and assists and all that. But generally speaking, a lot of it was having good comms, encouraging my teammates if they made a good shot, like, hyping them up. Sometimes it was getting the other team off the ball and giving my teammates space, things like that, calling out if they did have that time. A lot of the extra nitty gritty stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
would say, is something that you have to just focus on more.
Awesome. Um, a question from Justice. Do you, if you don't know the answer, that's fine as well. But it's about Rocket League players and whether or not they have agents. So is that a thing in pro esports? Do Rocket League players have agents to help with negotiations, sponsorships, etc.?
So it's not like if you're a pro, then you have an agent. But a lot of pros do have agencies that they're under.
Mm-hmm.
So Clover Talent is a big one within Rocket League. So I know that's a big agency. I know of I think Evolved is another one. There's a handful in the community. But usually if you do make it to the pro scene and get your name kind of in that mix, then usually at some point you'll have like some agent reach out to you or like an agency that wants to pick you up. It's a pretty normal thing. And even if you look under a lot of pro players' Twitter bios, like it'll show like if you have business inquiries, it'll show like an email for that goes to the agency or something. So it's pretty normal.
So are those agencies like for both like the influencer side of things and the competitive side of things? They kind of like do both, or is it more of like one or the other?
It depends. So there's some players that are like have very little social media influence or like
Mm-hmm.
platform, and there's some that have massive ones.
Right.
And so for the ones that are in like seeking out the like content side and like having bigger platforms, then the agency will I'm assuming will help out with both sides. It's not like you have one for one and one for the other. They do both.
Gotcha.
Um, but they do help with either the sponsorship side with like growing your platforms and whatnot, and then also like getting esports orgs. So like even how FaZe Clan got in the scene was through like the players before they were on FaZe Clan. Those players' agents were the ones that reached out to them, negotiated those deals and all that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, this is going to be the last question. Um, Where do you see, this is a question from Cam, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 30 years? In other words, do you have any insight on what you might do later in your career when you're a lot older?
Ooh, great question. So the honest answer is I don't know. It's something I've thought about as recent as like yesterday or 2 days ago. Um, but it's something that I've not really decided on yet. A lot of it is right now playing Rocket League by ear and seeing where things go. So like I said originally, I'm doing this full time by hours, but by income, it's definitely not.
Right.
It's definitely a risk for me right now. But I worked hard through school. I graduated a year early. Like financially, like I took care of school, did the things I needed to. So now I'm taking the jump and trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So for me right now, it's hey, if Rocket gets built up in the next 6 months to a year, however long, then I pursue it. If not, then I have mechanical engineering as a fallback. I know that I can get in the industry there and do something in that sense. So right now, I don't really know. A lot of it is kind of waiting out, working hard the next year with Rocket League and seeing where things go, and then afterwards, I would assume I'd probably have a much stronger answer.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, if there are no other questions, we will send you all off. But we really appreciate you being here, Kyle, and everybody else who is here. Be sure to follow him on Twitch, follow him on Twitter, follow him on TikTok. I don't know if he has one yet, but he will soon. You can follow us as well. Follow Vanta Leagues on Twitch, follow Vanta Leagues on Twitter, follow Vanta Leagues on Instagram. And we appreciate all of you guys being here. And if there are no other questions, that is going to be it. Thank you again.